picture tonight is one of the ones from the PCN series, World War II in their own words. I called PCN. They sent us over some books. They're $19.95, but they're getting us for $15 and no sales tax. So if you don't have one, get it, because you can get 2 autographs tonight. Hank's autograph, and we got Frank Kaczynski over there. I don't know why they put Frank in there, just because he got shot down. But anyway, if you can get a book, you can get 2 autographs tonight. You're only charging $5, aren't you, Frank? That's better than when I was down at Reading last year, and while Bill Garnier was there at the Band of Brothers table, and I bought one of Forrest Gutt's books, and got Forrest to sign it for me, and Bill sitting next to him, and I said, will you sign the book? And he said, only $65. But he did finally sign it. A couple pieces of business. I got a treasurer's report. Mike, I'm sorry. Cancun's still out. We haven't gotten up there. But our balance as of the end of January is $894.41. And that included $73 donations from January and 192 from December. So we are solvent. The other thing I wanted to bring up, I don't know how many of you might be interested in taking a trip down to Washington, D.C. and hit the World War II Memorial, and then buzz on out to Husbar and see the new Air and Space Museum. How about a show of hands, people that might be interested in that? Because we've got to get at least a 45-passenger bus, and if we get enough, we can get a 55-passenger bus. I did this tour last year for the Hummelstown Area Historical Society, and I brought it in at $25. I don't know if I can do that now with the gas and all, but anyway, if you guys think you'd be interested, I'll go talk to Capital Trailways and see what we can do in the spring. But that makes a nice tour. You get down and we hit the World War II Memorial, spend a little over an hour there, then go on out to Husbar. They've got a nice cafeteria there. We can get lunch there, and then stay there till we decide we want to leave. So anyhow, that's one of the things that's on the agenda.
Do you see the B-29 down in
Yep. Yep, you do. They've got, which really ticks me off, they've got plexiglass all around it because people spit on it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. A lot of idiots running around. But when it was over in storage before they put the Enola Gay out there, I was over there one day and was with a group, and we went out to the storage area where they had the Enola Gay. And I asked the guy that was guiding us through it, I said, "You got any objection if I go up and kiss that airplane?" And he said, "No," and just about the time I did, a group of Japanese tourists came. They apparently didn't quite appreciate it, but that's their problem. Anyway, with that, I'll introduce, you promoted yourself to Lieutenant Colonel now?
Yeah.
Lieutenant Colonel Mike Charney, our program chairman, he introduced tonight's speaker.
Thank you, Bill. Hey, by the way, what's this charge on here? It says Victoria's Secret? Extra large? Rosemary's not quite that big. Right? 75.
I bought this for you.
All right. People, you got to tolerate your command, you know. Well, I'll tell you what. This is another in a long series of just outstanding speakers, really outstanding individuals. I want to read about Major Hank Heim. Major Henry A. Heim's story is one of the Air Force's finest. During 4 tours of combat flying in 2 wars, he went above and beyond the accepted norms and exemplified the highest qualities of a combat aircraft pilot commander. Wounded during the attack on Pearl Harbor, he then completed 16 anti-submarine patrol missions as a waist gunner on the B-18 bomber. Subsequently testing for pilot, he was the first of his class to solo in 7 hours and 10 minutes, becoming one of 85 to graduate from the class of 204. He was the first class of flight officers. Serial number was T-98. Completing training on the new B-17 Flying Fortress, he was soon in combat in North Africa and Italy. He served as squadron leader, deputy group leader, and group lead pilot for the 2nd Bombardment Group, 20th Squadron. Flying perilous missions over Italy, Austria, Hungary, and Germany, he received a battlefield commission as second lieutenant shortly before completing his 50th mission. Normally, battlefield commissions are only given to ground officers. Volunteering for his second tour of duty, he would complete over 25 additional missions for a total of over 75 missions in the European theater of operations. He was promised, because of experience, that if he completes 25 more missions, they'll give him a DC-4 ride immediately home upon stepping off his final mission, and I think they did that. One time the Army actually came through. Serving as co-pilot for Major Richard Hedrick, he participated in the surrender of Sardinia during a heroic mission to Bucharest, Romania. Friendly skies where our own Frankie flew, completed at night without fighter escort. He rescued 8 seriously wounded American servicemen. He was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross, DFC, soon thereafter in October 44. Not stopping there, Hank went on to Korean conflict, where he served as aircraft commander flying B-29s for the 307th Bombardment Wing, 370th Squadron. During his tour, he logged more flight time than any other aircraft commander, completing 51 missions. In addition to the DFC, he received 2 Purple Hearts, 2 Presidential Unit Citations, the Air Medal with 11 clusters, and many other awards. And he's actually appearing in the profile Wall of Honor at numerous spots, I believe, one of which is down at the Udvar Hazy Museum. Here's someone who just went way far and above the call of duty, and I'm just extremely honored to be in his presence. I'm going to turn it over to hear Hank speak. He'll be speaking here. He's not pushing the book, by the way, but he said he has nothing to do with that, but he'd be happy to sign autographs afterward with Frankie, and it'll be appearing out at Reading. And as I said, I'm the program director out there, and we'd love to see you folks as well as Mr. McCann, the kids back there. It's great. Bring more and more over here. We want to see a greater and greater number of young people appreciating the efforts of our veterans. Matt Wayne, many of my friends, Charlie, et cetera. It's a great group to see you all out there, and I know you're going to appreciate our speaker today, Major Hank Heim. Let's give him a nice round of applause. By the way, I just want to add, Hank is very petrified right now. Could you believe this? All yours, bud.
Good evening. He's right. Believe me, that's why I'm hanging on. I would believe right now, if I had my brothers, I'd sooner fly 5 combat missions than stand up there. I am scared. You can tell from my voice. I'm not a public speaker, which will be evident very shortly. I have no notes except I came from a very small high school, northern Dauphin County. There were 46 graduating in my class. I had the distinction of being voted by 3 hotshots, Casanovas, as the least likely to succeed. And they were serious. If I knew the gentleman, well, one I'm dead. I'll get to him when I guess. But the other 2, I don't know where they are. I would like to thank them, because it's through them that gave me some drive. I enlisted, 19 years old, I enlisted July the 2nd, 1940, in what was then the Army Air Corps. After a period of boot camp at Fort Dix, I was sent to Hawaii. I was stationed at Pearl Harbor as the first 4 months there, I thought I made a mistake. But I got every dirty detail the Army could dish out. I didn't know if I picked some colonel off or what it was, but I got a lot of dirty detail. Finally, they sent me to school, chemical warfare and gunnery. And I wound up as an aerial gunner on a Z-18 bomber, flying patrol missions. I was there the day the Japs hit it, December the 7th, 1941. I was in my barracks, 2nd floor at Hickam, and I think there was one other man the wake. All the rest were still in the sack. There must have been 50 of them. We heard a lot of airplanes off the boulevard. And I heard an airplane dive, and then an awful explosion, and I jumped up. I thought the poor guy didn't pull out. So I run over to the window. The window was solid up to here, and then we had screen. And I looked out toward the harbor, and I saw smoke. Then I saw another plane diving, and something come off the bottom. Well, as soon as it came off, I knew what it was. And here comes another jet plane by the window. It wasn't any higher than this ceiling. The pilot shooting straight ahead, and his gunner had twins. I don't know what that was. I know that the boys, when you looking out at them, they looked like they were aiming right at me, and I thought they both looked about that big. Anyhow, he started to shoot, and I yelled. I saw the big red ball, and I yelled, "Caps!" I hit the floor, and he shot they were this fancy, he shot a chandelier off, and it crashed. I never saw 50 guys get out of the sack in all dress modes you ever saw, man. The war was on. I tried to get out of the barracks 3 different times, and all 3 times I was straight. I finally made it out of the barracks. I got over to my hangar, which was my duty place, and I wanted to get a machine gun, put it in the bomber. As I come around the corner, I looked and the bomber sitting there with the tail shot off. So I thought, well, I'll go and get the gun anyhow. I looked over and I saw a friend, and I yelled something to him. I stepped in the hangar, and that's the last I remember. They put a bomb to the roof. And when I come to, I guess it had blown me a good 20 to 25, 30 foot over against the wall. When I come through, I was on all fours, and I was bleeding pretty badly. Scared the bejeebers out of me. I thought I was dying. And after a while, sitting there, I thought, well, hey, maybe I'm not so bad also. I got up, went in the armor shack, got a machine gun and some ammo, and put it in the room. And that B-18 was sitting there, got the tail shot off. I'm getting a little mad at that time. So I start hammering them. They were 5, they were very low. I'm not saying I don't hold the damage, but I do like heck, I scared the bejeebers out of a couple because they turned around and come back and just hammered the heck out of me and set the airplane on fire. I was in there, and I smelled smoke. I left the premises. I got out of there real quick. And they strafed me trying to go over to get into an irrigation ditch. I hit the deck, and I could feel a bullet driven into the ground. And the second time I did it, I could feel stones coming up against the side of my face, so they weren't missing me by far. I got into the ditch, and that's where I sat out the rest of the raid. That night, I went to the hospital. I thought I could get something done. And I walked in the corridor of the hospital, and I stopped immediately. What I saw was the people moaning and groaning, and I did see a young fellow there with his leg blown off. I saw people burned. Well, let's put it this way. They were in a heck of a lot worse shape than I was in. So I walked back out. And a lieutenant gathered us up and put us down along the coast, down along the entrance to the harbor. They were doing that to all of the fellows right then. They thought Jacks were going to follow it up, and they missed the boat. So if they'd have followed up, they'd have taken that out and so slick. Nothing but a mess. Well, I laid there up against the master's house. The officer wasn't in it, of course. I dug a little hole and stayed there all night and smelled the smoke burning. And, now and then some guy get trigger happy and start shooting. When one guy shot 50 or 60 other guys would shoot. Next morning at daybreak, heard airplane engines. And somewhere up the line, I heard somebody yell, "Here they come." Well, then the guns did start coming. So I laid out 2 bandoliers of ammunition. I must have looked like Pancho Villa. I had 2 bandoliers. And I laid them out, I put the bayonet on, that scared me right there. I didn't like the looks of that. The lieutenant said, you will not retreat. You will fight to the death. You've got to give Schofield Barracks, which is 17 miles back up in the mountains from Pickham. And they will fight to the death. We've got to give the states, our homeland, time to get ready. Well, it started in the morning. These airplanes, by the way, turned out to be our own. I won't say what I heard, but they were Navy pilots. I don't think, they were too smart. Coming in at daybreak, and, well, I guess we were poor shots. We didn't do too much to them, except the deer the heck out of them. But I'll tell you this, when we heard them, and I laid all that stuff out, I put that bayonet on, I just looked out there at that water. Hero, brave. You know why? I cried. I did. Today was my last, or that day was my last day on earth. And yes, I cried. I'm not afraid to admit it wasn't the only time that I did it in the war, and I imagine there's a lot of people too. But I did. Well, nobody came, thank gosh. I went back to the hospital the following morning and they fixed me up. And while I'm recuperating, there's a notice in the bulletin board. Any person that thinks he could pass the written test and the rigid physical would be considered. You know that word considered. They didn't say you would be. They said would be considered for flight school. I only graduated from high school. And at that, I was the least likely to succeed, as I said. But, I just figured this way. I wasn't the smartest. But how was I ever going to know I couldn't pass it if I didn't try? I took the test. And I got back to the barracks. My buddy said to me, he wasn't going to take it. He said, he'd never pass it. Well, he asked me, he said, what did you do? I said, I think I'm in your category. I don't think I passed it. Well, 4 days later, I found out I did. The first sergeant said to me, would you like to know your score? I said, nope, I don't want to know the score. I passed. I was sent back to the West Coast to flying school. I went through primary at Hancock College of Aeronautics. Then I went to a basic at Lemoore Field in California, and I graduated and got my pilot wings November the 25th, 1942, out of Roswell, New Mexico. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this might look like I'm trying to be showy or something. But if you know my wife, if it isn't nailed down, it's going to be thrown out. I found my original wings and had a bracelet made out of them. Here they are. I had them made up, but I was quite proud of them. That was one of the proudest of days. There was 4 high school fellows in my cadet class. The rest were either 2 years or 4 years of college. We even had, I think it was 13 West Point cadets senior year going through the pilots. And I just said here, and by the way, I did not write this. Anyhow, there was 204 in my class. 85 of us graduated. And guess what? Those 4 high school boys are still there. We would study at night. Our lights were out at 9:30. 9:30 at night, the lights out. You didn't have to be in bed, but the lights were out in the room. So there was nothing to go to the head. And where I studied where the other three was on the throne, if you know what I mean. It was right there. And I got an extra hour of studying it. Like us, so did the other guys. We made it. I was assigned, I wanted to be a fighter pilot, but they get all the glory. They also get all the women. You know, there was like, a fighter pilot does one, woo! Former partner look at you like this. See? Then I had one woman say, I'm not but a bus driver. What did I tell you? Well, I got tangled up with this B-17. I'll never forget the first time I pulled up in that cockpit. The instructor pilot, I don't know why they all got to be so mean and miserable. I pull up there and I look around and I said, oh, dear Lord. And I'll never learn this. I went to go up, he grabbed me. He said, you put your finger in every switch I called. Well, I knew he was lying. I couldn't remember that much. I did it. I loved that airplane. I got to have my crew there. We trained as a crew. Parents. Come time to go overseas, I was 22 years old, flew to Newfoundland on the new B-17, took off the following evening, 10 minutes after takeoff, 7:10 at night. I was in a suit. You know what the suit is? I was socked in. Couldn't see the wingtips. All the way across the Atlantic. We were going to Preston, Scotland. Going across, my poor navigator couldn't get a celestial fix. The only thing he had to work on was freezing. The freezing winds and so forth. Next morning broke out daybreak and we broke out above the clouds. Well, that didn't help much. He called me and he said in 20 minutes, he said, if you should be close enough to the Prestwick, Scotland radio beam. If you don't get it, he said, I apologize to everybody, you're lost. There were 13 bombers took off that night for Scotland, and 5 of them, we don't know what happened. So, to make a long story short, I tuned in, and there it was. And I called him and I said, good job. And through the beaming, I broke out at 300 foot off the ground. And there was the first big Scotland on me. And so I said out loud, there, how's that for the least likely to succeed? I landed, taxied in, cut the engines. I'm tired. I'm going to put your flying instrument. And I noticed the civilian standing off to the side. It was always misty there and cool. I jumped out of the plane and he came walking over and I heard him say, welcome to Scotland. Put his hand out. It was Bob Hope. He was there on tour. And he said, I just had to meet you guys. And we walked back to the hotel that I'd taken for it. And that night, just so happened, as I was going down to eat my evening meal, he was coming down the hall. And he said to me, you going, Dave? I said, yeah. Chow down, Southport. I said, yes. He said, come on. I said, ooh, this is going to be nice. I'm going to eat the movie star. I go down and we go into the dining area. To the door, he goes over here where they have the white linens and the waiters have, this kind of. I was over here at the wretched GIs. You know what I mean? So that's the last I saw him. I then flew down to England, from England to down the coast to French Morocco, from French Morocco up to Tunis. And that's where I joined my outfit. The Colonel Rice is his name. He never smoked a cigar, he chewed. And he always had tobacco juice, not only here, but down here too. And as tough as nails. I mean, he just scared me to death just looking at him. He didn't even have to talk to me. But he talked to the crew. And then at the end, he wanted to know, are there any questions? Well, I had none. I said, Colonel, I'd like to know something. How come the 8th Air Force, I hope I'm not treading on toes here, The 8th Air Force had to fly 25 for a tour. We got to fly 50. He looked at me and he said, you know what? Damned if I know. Then he said, which made me feel good for a fraction of a second, but I wouldn't let it get to me. He said, I wouldn't be too concerned about that. I thought, oh, good, good. He said, he paused, that sucker, he was an actor too. He said, you're not going to live that long. He said, our average lifespan over here is 9 missions. I had 10 men in my crew, counting myself. In 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, only 3 of us were alive out of 10. They were knocking us off. We had no fighter escort. And the sand, you know, getting our engines, it was a mess. We didn't have showers at first. You get a group of men perspire in that desert heat. My flight suits, I had 3 of them. I could stand them in the corner. And in the morning when I slipped my feet out of the cot, I'd say, yeah, you in the middle. And they'd walk forward. I mean, my wife said to me, oh, she said, man, you must have stunk. I said, sure I did, but so did everybody else. Till we got showers. Our cots were just that, a canvas cot set on the sand, in the sand. We had 1 blanket. We had no sheets, no mattress, no pillows. When we ate at the mess hall, the big tent, the first time I wised up, looked good. Had that round mess kit and the lid. So first thing I got, I think, was mashed potatoes. You get down in this big garden pan, and you get this spoonful, and you didn't just heck me. Those mess sergeants were rough, you know. They held it like that in front of my nose. That wouldn't have fell off of there if you'd hit it with a stick of dynamite. And I was supposed to eat that. Well, I took a spoon and ate it. Went to the next one, and they gave you meat. And to this day, especially if I find out some guy was a mess sergeant overseas, I said, you fed us horse meat. It was fatty. Well, the first time, then, oh, you got brown gravy. Brown gravy is nothing but water. Poured that over it, and like a dummy, I stuck the can up next place, thinking I was going to get more. Oh, I got it. It was dessert. Fruit cocktail. I had fruit cocktail, gravy, meat, and what you call it, all in one plate. Like this, see? Then we went out, we had no place to sit. There's meal in the sand. Now, get coffee, and those guys in the, then you just what to do, they had that boiling hot. Well, you had another cup. You fill it up. And the first time I put it in my lip to burn my lips. Hotter than a son of a gun. So, you set it down. Well, by the time the cup was cold enough to drink, the coffee was really cold. So what I'm saying is the conditions weren't the same. And they were flying 25. Yeah, fly 50. What didn't matter when they got to live that long. So it was very, you know, I didn't care much for that kind of talk, but he knew more about it than I did. Yeah, our losses when I first got there were heavy. At one time, and I still don't know what month it was, we went out to the hit a target in Germany with 28 bombers, 280 men, 30 of us from home. I was done that way. The following day, we could only muster 17 B-17. That's all. We didn't have any more. Went out and hit by target Austria. 3 of us come home. In 2 days, my entire group was wiped out. Actually, we'd sit down for 2 weeks till we got replacements from the States. And then we started flying. War, I don't know. I tell the kids, I talk to a lot of the students, and maybe I shouldn't say it the way it was. War is not the answer, ladies and gentlemen. War is not the answer. I saw so much, and I will not get into it. And to think of what these men have fought on the ground, seemed to, I had one old timer tell me, how would I like to have been down with him? Well, not too good. But I will say this, there were times, and too many times, that I honest to goodness would have sacrificed 6 months of my life just to lay in a 6-inch rut. They pounded you. A bomber, he just sat there like a sitting duck. I thought it was do something about it. Now, war is not the answer. I will say one story. I don't like to get into the story part. Mainly because maybe I shouldn't handle it, I don't know. But on a very tough mission, I got a call from the Valley Church on it. I understand there was a B-17 pilot here, he knows what I'm talking about. I got a call, I'm hit, sir, I can't see. But he said, I'll stay in the turret and I'll shoot. Just, when everything's clear, I'll shoot. Well, the Germans, if they knew you had a gun position out, that's where they came at that position and just rigged it. But he did. We came out of the combat zone. I turned the plane over to the co-pilot and went back. And I put one of the guns down in the door and opened the door. And I looked down in, I could see he was still alive. I unhooked him, pulled him up out of there. And he was only like 5'2", 5'3", maybe 115, 120. And I knelt down alongside of the turret and I held him like a baby. I reached down and took his oxygen mask off. And he started, when I went to the goggles, I could see blood. But anyhow, I took it down, and his eyeballs were laying down here. He was hit just as swift as could be. He went in, I don't know if it's straight apart, but it was in here and came out right here, and he popped them both out down here. And I held him tight, talked to him, and he tilted his head back, but he couldn't see. And he said to me, please, sir, please help me. And I squeezed him and said, hang in, Sarge, I'll get you home. One of them was alive because he died about 2 minutes later in my arms. So, and I had a 22-year-old co-pilot, never saw the man before. Good looking son. Yeah, he's good looking. And you're the first 30 to 40 seconds of combat. He sat right there beside me. He's dead. He's dead. When he comes out of the first mission, he's dead. But you have a lot of that. See planes blow up, 10 men in them, you might see a chunk that big fly off. Anyhow, I made it through 50. I'll never forget a little comical thing. I had a daughter while I was over there. No, the wife was back here. I don't mean over there. The wife was back home. Anyhow, see what I mean about a poor speaker? She sent me a letter. Oh, and she's giving me thunder. You ought to be here. I'm telling you. Oh. Up one side, down the other. And I started to figure out when this was. She got a letter back. I told her, I wish that I would have been here. Because at the time, I'm taking 7 bombers on the target over Athens, Greece, and I only come off with 3. They're shooting us to pieces. So she didn't have it too tough. I told her, of course I told her at that distance, you know. I went through 50, and there was about, maybe a dozen or so were able to go home at Victoria, and some gentleman came there and told us the story. He said, we need these pilots. We need them very bad. if you volunteer, he said, I will not promise you medals. Actually, and I'm serious. A guy in combat could almost say to the medal, you know, he wants to get him fuck out of there, wants to get him home. He said, I will not promise you a medal. He said, I cannot promise you a promotion. But he said, what I will promise you, the day you quit, see, we were given, on the second tour, we were given a chance to quit at any time. But we thought we couldn't handle it anymore. The day you quit, 3 days from that day, you'll be in the States. There were 3 of us, another captain, a major, and myself, volunteered. On the 9th mission into the second tour, the captain was killed. On the 13th mission into the second tour, the major was killed. That was me. I started thinking, you know, it's stretching my life. But I will say this, after a while, I just somehow, that was because I wasn't too smart, I just felt that today I'm going to get killed. Today I don't see the sun. As I pull out, the sun was just coming up, and as I get higher, I can see the sun. I often used to look out the cockpit window and wonder, am I going to see it set? And I just, today I'm going to get it. Well, it just finally got to me, and I was 23-year-old, burnt out. I mean, it's the most horrible feeling you ever felt in your life. I couldn't do anything. I know that if I didn't quit, I'm going to kill some innocent people. So I walked into my squadron and I told the first sergeant, we told him, Tiny, not because he lived. Tiny was the kind of a guy that was this way and this way. He was about as fat as he was hot, tall. But he was a father to all of us. And when I told him I quit, he broke down, he bawled every day. He went into the squadron commander and said he's putting in his papers. 2 years later, I was in the States. It was a mess. It was really a mess. I can't tell you how many casualties we had, wounded and so forth. I was wounded the second time over there. I was hit back through the shoulder over Munich, and I had a greenhorn second lieutenant that was about as scared as I was when I walked up here, so you know he was pretty scared. And I couldn't turn it over to him. We were flying formation, 40 detachments by the time I landed that airplane. I love flying. I really do. I don't love war. But I really love flying. I hold a commercial license, single and multi-engine. I love it. And like I said before, gentlemen, ladies, war is hell. I don't hope anyone, we have one now, but I don't hope anyone must go through it. I know when I'm called home as Supreme Commander, I stand, this may sound dramatic to some, to me, I think about it. And I stand in front of the gates. To St. Peter I will tell. Another soldier reporting, sir, please let me enter, for you see, I've already served my time. That's the way I feel. Not only me, I feel for all of the veterans. It was tough. Very tough. I went to Korea, volunteered. Now that's my own fault. You know, my dad was a World War I vet, and he used to say this thing in front. Don't you ever volunteer in a service. Don't you ever. I think that's all I did. He'd have wailed the tar out of me if he had found out how many times I volunteered. I volunteered to go in and get those 8 wounded men. I couldn't. I'll tell you something. It's this way. If I were one of those 8 wounded men, I sure as heck would like somebody come for me. And we got him out of there. And when I saw them, I was so glad. Oh, they were in bad shape. And Korea, I volunteered to take a guy's place. He was given the word to report for Korea in 2 days. I happened to be in the officer club that night. He and his wife were there. She was bawling, and he was looking down the dumps. And I wondered where his young son. So I asked him. They had just rushed his young son to the hospital with an ailment that the doctors didn't have the slightest idea what was wrong with him. And he said, I know it's my turn. I had already had World War II coming. He said, right now is a bad time. He said, I got one. So next morning I'm going to see the old man, and I tell him the story. And I said, I want to volunteer in this place. The old man almost threw me out of the office. He said, if I do that, he said, the Pentagon's going to have nail my you know what, to the wall. I said, I'll sign a letter. Have it typed up. So he did. I signed it, and then I shipped over. My wife wouldn't come live with me. And, you know, she hated the service. She wouldn't let come. So he had his wife, he had his family. One guy had nothing, just standing there. So I said, I'll take it, and I took it. Got a crew, when I got over there, Lieutenant flew with me one night. He said, would you like a crew? Sure. I said, yes, sir, I'd like a crew. He said, I wouldn't say it too quick. These are deadheads. These are men that have been kicked off of other crews. The pilots did one. Yeah, I promise you I'll give you the better ones. I said, you do that. Well, if I brought my records along, I'll show you that Moby Dick crew of mine made, in fact, made lead crew. We were assigned a target in Russia. The whistle blew, we knew exactly where to go, everything. In other words, we were a lead crew. I had nothing to do with it. We all had to do the same. The tail gunner is just as important as I was. The only thing I said to the crew, all crews, I'm the quarterback. I'm no better, no worse, but I'm the quarterback. Because if something goes wrong, whose butt do you think they're going to shoot? The guy that's leading the plane. That's me. So I never had trouble. Done a good job. I flew 51 over there, 51 missions. The average was 30. I flew 51. Again, volunteer. We get new green crews and they need somebody to take it. I know that pretty cold there. One night, flying up along the Yellow River, I could look down the distance into the Yellow River, and it was cold. I looked at the outside temperature gauge, it was minus 52 degrees. And then all of a sudden, boop, boop, just like that, my body temperature went up 400 degrees. It was an odd thing. When I first got there, we do daylight missions. They wouldn't let us go across the alley. You could look down, I saw 3 fields. They'd come up with their MiGs, shoot the thunder out of us, then run like scared cats back across the alley, and we weren't allowed to go after them. But the missions in Korea, they were lengthy, bad weather. They were I know that I've missed a lot of stuff. When you go through 2 wars and Pearl Harbor, I know that there are people that say we should have notes. But what I like to do is to tell the audience, please ask questions. But that way you can get me into something that I may have forgotten. If you have any questions, did I talk long enough?
Hank, you did a great job. First of all, before we take questions, let's give Hank a warm welcome. I really don't have anything to say. I'm out of words. You've heard from the man himself. I just wanted to, Will Kettner, put your hand up. Our own Will Kettner filed 303rd.
303rd Bomb Group, B-17, a beautiful aircraft, right?
I got news for you. I brought the sucker home from Vienna one day, November the 2nd, 1943. When I got home, the ground crews, two of them, ground crews counted the holes, 432 holes shot through my B-17. I had one man killed. Nobody wounded or anybody. Try that for size. I was flying a SIG.
I had lunch yesterday with a classmate of mine who graduated at Moody Field with me. He flew, I didn't see him for 50 years. Now we get together down in Gettysburg. He flew B-24s. He says it flew higher and faster and carried a bigger bomb load. But Andy Moody said, that's true, but if I want to come home, I want to fly in the B-17.
I know that B-24 pilot. I run into him, and the kid is right. I think he can beat me in a fight, so it's just a kid.
Thanks for what you did for us.
I told him. He said that too, about that. More bomb load, faster and higher. I said, that's why I'd look out the window and I'd see a B-24 down there trying to gain, and he'd drop a bomb.
The gliding angle
And
of a rock.
another bomb.
Thank you.
Hank, I just want to say, on a lighter note, I would love to see you when you aren't nervous. I was riveted. I don't know. That was fantastic. Thanks so much. I just want to say too, Hank, that, and to our audience, Hank was feeling a little bit under the weather with a pretty serious viral disorder, and he kept trying to come over and didn't make the Pearl Harbor, but he's over here tonight, and you look fantastic. So I'm glad you're back on your feet, and we'll see you ready. Why don't you field questions? Just go ahead, throw your questions out to him. And
By the way, I can't see it. There's women in here. I was told just yesterday, I won't know veteran. He looked at me, and I still was World War II, and he looked at me and said, yeah, and I was in the Civil War, you know, that kind of a look. He said, we're getting haircuts, as you can see. Anyhow, he said, I'm 84. He said, I'm telling you, that's tough to be 84. And the barber who knows me looked at me and said, ask him what he is. In April, I'm going to be 86. So the good Lord has blessed me. I used to wander in the tent at night. By the way, I told you about crying. Well, a commander never cries. I'm 23 years old, commanding as high as 500 to 1,000 men. 23 years old. You're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed to show fear. Just think what would happen if you showed fear and went to pieces and your men are watching you. Well, I guess I was pretty good at putting on a show. After briefing, they'd be up there yelling, fighters coming in here and screaming, fighters, and I'd quiet them down in a very calm voice inside out there tearing to pieces. I said, now hang in there, we're going to be all right. Watch the chatter and all that. After briefing, when we're done, I'd congratulate them, talk to them, walk down to my tent just as straight up as I could get. Crawl in the tent, I was the first cot inside. There was 5 of us in there. And throw myself down the tent, flight suit, flight boots, everything. Pull the cover over my head, then that commander would cry. So, if it's a sin for a 23-year-old man that has all that stuff, and I'm sure they had them on the ground and stuff like that. But you see, ladies and gentlemen, I was in the air, I can't talk for them on the ground. They went through a living, you know what, too. Like I said, there were times I wish I would have, I'd have given me for 6 months of my life just to lay in a 6-inch. I thought every gun Germany had was aimed at me. Scared me the cheapers out of me. And I've often wondered, really, why me? I'm in it, why me? I'm not that good. Really. I mean this, I'm no better than anybody else. There were a lot of good people didn't make it. Why me? And the chaplain once told me, the good Lord help you, he put an angel on your shoulder. And you know what, that angel, I believe, is still riding there. Now that may sound like I'm giving you a lesson in religion, I don't mean to. But that's how I feel about it. I have feelings. It bothers me a lot. I know if my dad saw me, would have seen me go, he'd have been madder than a wet hen. He was a tough old German, American. He fought against his uncles in World War I. He had a brother that was killed 10 o'clock on the morning of November the 10th, or November the 11th, 1918. 1 hour before armistice, his brother was killed. And my brother called me about a month or so ago, and he was reading the Civil War book, and he said, "My God, you get around." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Battle of Gettysburg, there's a Captain Heim down there." "What were you doing down there?" Now I'm done messing around. If anybody has a question, I'll do my best to answer them.
Hank, I'll start you over here.
Yes, sir.
Your B-29 you said was Moby Dick?
No, my B-29 I named after my daughter, the Miss Donna Kay. 2 weeks after I came home, the guy that flew it was hit with a rocket and blew up over North Korea.
What was your name of your B-17?
I didn't have it. I never kept one long enough. I guess I went through 4 or 5 B-17s. So I know some guys had names, but I didn't have any.
I thought you might have had one you couldn't say with a mixed audience.
If I had one like that and taken a picture, my wife would have seen it. By the way, my wife and I just celebrated this past month, the 19th, our 64th wedding. Yep. My gosh. Yes, ma'am.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on the Bucharest raid, where you were able to get a
Yes.
down soldiers out?
A major doctor, flight surgeon, what we call him, he was dropped in there. And there was 2 of us flew to Bucharest with brass, a lieutenant and myself. And I saw the major getting off the Jeep or a vehicle, and he was dirty and clothes were dragged. He must have been for a long time. Anyhow, I watched him talk to the one pilot that flew over with me, and I saw the pilot say no. Because at a certain time, we were to meet P-51 fighters to escort us back home. And I thought, I wonder what this is all about. So when that officer didn't do it, he walked over to me. And I did it again. I said, "You have him here at dusk." I said, "I'll take him out." And he brought him on old rickshaw trucks and so forth. Oh, and I was so happy. I said, "Yes." One was shot through the stomach, another one was burned, smelled and burned. But there were a lot of bad injuries. I often wondered if all of them survived. I got them back to Bari, Italy, which was headquarters of the main hospital. And when they went to unload these boys, they got them off my airplane about 2 o'clock in the morning. They wouldn't get on the ambulances until my top gunner, engineer, and he come up and got me. I went back, and they thanked me. And then they got on the ambulance. But I'm so happy, honestly. I don't think of 2 or 3 of them made it, but who am I, you know? I had to give it a go. But like I said, if I would have been one of those 8, I would wish somebody would at least try. Don't even get me. That's how that happened. Like I said, I volunteered again, you know. Any more? Yes, sir?
What's a B-18?
B-18 was the ugliest looking. I've got news for you. I didn't think when I first looked at it, I thought, there's no way I'm calling that thing ugly thing. It looked like a big blunt cigar. You know what I mean? And it twin engine. It actually went about 110 to 150 miles an hour. Oh, it was the ugliest looking. Who made it? I'll be darned if I know. I didn't even want to know too much about that. Yes, sir.
Did you run across any ME-262s while you were over
Yes, I
there?
did. Over Munich. If you don't mind, I'm going to sit right down here. Come on. The joint's stiffen up.
You're still a young man.
Okay, now you said every 262?
Yes.
Okay, the factory was at Munich. We went up to get it one day, and there was about 4 or 5 of them come down through the formation. I know the famous expression by my flight engineer that day was, as it went right through, he said, "What the was that?" He couldn't get his gun on it. I run into twice, I think we run into. Actually, I must say, as far as my B-17, they didn't do any damage to mine. They may have damaged some of the others. They made one pass and had to go in. That's all, one pass.
Did they run out of fuel or just?
No, they come down through me. I was leading the squad or the group that day. And they tried to, they get me out of there, out of the way, but, it scared the jeepers out of us because none of us knew what it was. And the poor gunner said, they were flabbergasted.
Well, I believe they were the first jets, weren't they?
Yes. Yeah, twin-engine jets. Yep. Anything else? Yes, sir.
You said that you flew 51 missions over there, up around the Yalu River. Was that for photo reconnaissance over Russia?
No, that was bombing missions. We bombed. I carried, under B-29, I carried something like 40 500-pounders. 40 500-pounders, and we'd take off, and we'd have about 7,900 gallons of gasoline. And all the bombs. And you had one runway on the way back. If it stopped in, you were in bad shape. You couldn't go anywhere else. You had to get in there. But we had some very good men on the ground, radar and that. They helped quite a bit.
And where's your home base after your B-29? Was it in Japan or?
No, it was Okinawa, Kadena. Yeah. Home base, Newcomb. Yeah. And by the way, I want to let you know, I'm in charge. You know why? She's visiting a friend down in Delaware. I'm in charge. You know, it was a terrible thing, in a sense. When I come home from the service, like I said, I led as high as 1,000 men in club. I thought I was somebody. I got out of the service, well, I was in the reserve, but that didn't matter. I got out of the service, we had a dog. I wound up 30 man. The wife, the dog, and then me. And boy, one day the dog died, and I thought, wow.
You got promoted.
I'm still behind the totem pole. I'm glad she's down there. Oh, she was here. I'd walk home. Yes, sir.
Did you fly over Pulaski, or is
Yes.
that Pulaski?
Yeah, Pulaski, the first raid on Pulaski was made by B-24 Liberators. But after that, I hit Pulaski at least 4 times. And down at the Reading Air Show, run into a German fighter pilot, World War II. And I got to talking to him when my buddy was doing the talking. And he said to this German, where were you stationed in World War II? And the German, he could speak fairly good English. The German said, Budapest. Well, my buddy don't have a lick of sense. He turned to me and he said, well, you're born Budapest. I couldn't even like him up. And I looked down and I said, yes, I born Budapest about 4 times. And the German looked at me and said, well, then I shot at you. I said, it's okay, you missed. But he sent me an autographed picture. I have it in my den. I'm in uniform and he's in uniform. Not from World War II. No. I had to get I wanted a uniform. So I had a friend who was general, so I figured I'd pick the general. He can get one for me. This is going to sound morbid to some people. I fought in 2 wars. My government, and I mean this, my government doesn't owe me a penny.
Good.
It's I that owes my government.
Good. I got this, and I'm going to ask as a favor. I don't know who to ask or how to go about this. I have full dress uniform, with all my ribbons authorized, rank and everything. The only thing I would like, and I don't know a thing about it, but I would like to be put away with full military honors. I believe, honest, I believe I've earned it. A lot of us have earned it. But that's how I'd like to go. And that's why I have this uniform. PCN told me, if you have a uniform, wear it. And I did. And that's when I met the major down there. Well, he was a lieutenant. Yeah, I outranked him for a change, anyhow. He's the guy who shot at me. I told my buddy, I said, you're going to get me in trouble here. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I said, I fought it 4 times. There wasn't many targets over there I didn't bomb. Some were tough. Didn't have very few milk roads.
Hank, what was the hardest target you faced of all of them, if you can?
The hardest, one of the toughest, and I would say we had some just as tough, but one of the toughest was the one where I had the 400 and some holes. My group of 28 planes going to the target was hit with 160 fighters before it ever got to the target. We got over the target, you couldn't see through the anti-aircraft bursts. You couldn't see through it. You hit that, you were bounced all over the place, and an anti-aircraft shell, when it goes off, it's not a sharp whack or boom. It's like a thump. Thump. Your airplane will shudder or go up or down. And they hit us hard. Then we come back off the target. Guess what? There's 80 more fighters waiting for us on the way home. That was a tough one. Munich was very tough. Athens, Greece. Pulaski. Oh, yeah. We had some good news. Oh, Marseille, France. Yeah. We had some pretty tough ones. And there was a few in Italy.
I think it was a town called Frascati or something like that. And there were very few real easy.
What's the most important thing to learn
Out of war,
out of your experience?
my experience in the war. That's wonderful to be alive. That's the most important thing. You know, I put away, or I saw getting put away, 18, 19-year-old. And I feel, I was only 22, then 23. But like I said, it's wonderful. I made it. I'm alive. And also that I think we could get along if we tried. You know, one church service that struck me very much was a Christmas Eve. They held church service for the flight crews in a wine cellar in the evening. That day actually was a mix-up crew. And engineers from this and that, and this kind of stuff. And they had 10 boxes. They were ammunition boxes. I took receipts. They couldn't be anymore because it wasn't that wide. 10 men on the crew. I don't know if they figured it that way or what, but that's how it was. And I just leaned forward and I looked down. There were 3 Catholics, 1 Jew, and the rest Protestant. Just what the minister was. And we all got along. They were in the service the same. I saw that same Lutheran minister did the last rites for a young Catholic daughter. You know what I mean? If we get along in war and all that stuff, why can't we get along? I don't quite understand it. And I mean the politicians too. They're the worst ones. You know, if the one side comes up with a point, the other side, before he gets it out, that's no good. And the other side, yeah, they fight right away because they're different. I'd like to get inside. Put something in the hole now. Yeah, what's my age? What's my age? But I don't know if that answers your question, what I learned, but that's how to live and enjoy life.
How about some of the students? Fire away. Go ahead, come on.
That you had,
Where are you? Oh,
you said that you met one of 3 people who voted you least likely to succeed again.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on the story?
but it was, it was that time of the year, 2 weeks before you graduate. And you know how they have when you graduate, back then, they had the guy most likely to succeed, and you know what I'm talking about, yeah. The gal most likely to succeed, stuff like this. And these fellows didn't care for me because I was as shy as could be. I'm not kidding. I was scared to death of girls. If one girl would have come up and smiled at me or touched me, I'd have fainted. Dead away. I was scared to death. On a day off, I'd take my old hound and go up over the mountain. There's a nice trout stream, and not too far, and go up an old hill, and I'd go fishing. But they thought I was loony, you know, and I guess this is why they come right up to me. And anytime they could hurt me, because they knew I wouldn't say anything back, they did it. They really did it. They, you know, and that did bother me. Least likely to succeed. But I'll tell you, like I said, the one guy died. Before he died, he did tell me. He said, what a mistake. Anyhow, I don't know about the other 2. How many kids? I got 2. I have a girl and a boy. And there's 10 years between both of them because there's also a war or 2. 2 daughters, 2 granddaughters. Oh my mom used to say, oh, I'd sooner raise a boy any day than a girl. Yeah, they don't give Grandpa so much trouble. I don't know if they're afraid of me or what.
Hey, I'll put you on the spot, maybe, and I know it's controversial, and we actually had fellas out at the hangar. It was a tough time socially with blacks just getting into the military. Do you have any opinion about the Tuskegee Flyers who escorted 15 bombers? Any thoughts?
No, the Tuskegee Airmen was over there where I was. I'll give you, for instance, as far as I know, they did not escort my group. There were other groups there, and they would escort, and I'm sure they did. I was coming home, the group was coming home from a target, and it was pretty rough, and I got a call. I was leaving tail end Charlie, squadron. I got a call from the B-17. I had 2 engines out. Can you slow down? Can you please slow down? This way, if he could stay with me, he'd have firepower. Otherwise, they'd shoot him out of the sky. So I slowed down, which meant I fell out of formation with my 7 bombers. He stuck right up in the middle of us. And we started home, and holy smokes, out of it. We'll come to about 11, 12, Focke-Wulf 190. German planes, and they started to hammer us. So I get on the channels for fighters, just calling in the clear. I'm calling for help. Man, they were knocking the fire out of it. And all of a sudden I hear, hang on, boss. We see you. I look up in front, here they come, 5 of them. Tuskegee Airmen. I know what the shepherd was and rather on the tail. And between them and our bombers, we drove the Germans off. And I've talked to them at many spots down there, and I've talked to them. And some of the 15th Air Force reunions I went to, I talked to them. They're fine. You know, they had to go through, they couldn't get in like we. They had to have 4 years of college. So question, they had to have it. And here I am, done high school with me. So I don't. They've done their duty. I cannot say anything against them.
Sir, can you mention that you said you were very lucky throughout the war?
Yes.
Can you mention the time you got lucky on the way back, limping back from a mission, you had a German fighter come up? And about what mission was that for you out of your 75 missions over there?
That was between 50 and 75. I don't know which one it was. We were up over, I believe it was Germany, southern Germany, and my airplane got shot to pieces, and I had one engine out, another one I wasn't getting much power, and holes all over the place. And I went out over the water, the Mediterranean, because I thought if I went over this land and was hit with just one shell, I was going down. So I stayed right along the coastline. And directly, one of my gunners called me, sir, we have a German FW-190 fighter sliding in from the left. And I said, just a minute, Sarge. Is he sliding or is he pointing his nose at us? Oh, no, sir. He's sliding in. I said, hold your fire. If you want to shoot us, he'll come head on. So he slid in, and the next thing I look, and there he is. Off from here, there, right to there. And I look at him, and he looks at me, and he flies along with me. Well, that's something to picture I wish I had. I mean, there's the swastika, and here's the star. Anyhow, he flies along with me for 8-10 minutes. And finally, he slides right in. And now he's like there. Now, we have our oxygen mask on, so I didn't get a facial expression. And he looks at me. All of a sudden, brings his hand up and he salutes. Now I looked at him and I flew back. And he looked at me again. And like I said, oxygen mask on. I don't know what he said, but he nodded like this to me, and then he flew off. I'm sure what he said when he went this way. Good luck. He flew right off. If I only would have been so scared and would have got his number, maybe later on in life I could have bought the T-bone steak. Or beer, or something.
for the one, and then the rest of it. Right outside of Tunis, between Tunis and Missouri.
That's where it's all B-17 land, one engine. A lot of people said I was full of wind. So, both, shot out.
Yeah. We were laying in sacks, and the Germans come over going berserk, you know, the seaport guy. And the dirty guys didn't play her safe. They dropped paratroopers, periscope, arrow. And for the next 5-6 missions, it was, you'd see a B-17 taking off, the deer come up, blow up. They were speaking something until we put guards down and we killed a few of them, then they stopped it.
Hank, you mentioned about that pilot with the Hawk 190.
Yes.
Which was the worst fighter you faced, the ME-109s or the Hawk 190?
I'll tell you, I think, so help me, I think the worst was the FW-190. I really do. I could, you might ask another pilot, and he'll say, no, you're crazy, it's the ME. They were both good, don't get me wrong, but I think the FW-190.
Had that cannon and
Oh, they were slick. And then they go, like that, and here they had sheet iron, you know, and you could see the tracers ricocheting off as they broke away from them. But speaking of that, we didn't have any armor, really. So one day, I thought, I'm going to have to find something. I went to the sheet shop and I found a square about that big. And about that big of steel. You know where I took it? Down here in the seat. And I put the parachute on it. It wasn't more than 2 or 3 missions afterwards. So there was an awful explosion under my airplane. Just went up in the air and come down. And, oh, it scared me half to death. Of course, I didn't think about that down there. When I got back to the base, we always take a parachute with the stuff. And you get out of the seat. The seat was terrible. So I don't know. Then I get up, then so I got the door handle. Right in my hand, in the middle, there was a hole that big. This is that steel. I said, well, back here and so. I don't feel anything. I don't feel any pain, you know. And, wow. So I took the chute, didn't complete. The sergeant, the ground crew chief, and I, we started to peel the chute away. Not far from coming through, we found a piece of metal that big. Just think if I wouldn't have got that steel. Now you know when I say, why me? Yeah. Yes, sir.
Compare, if you would, well, one of the obvious differences between the B-17 and the B-29, you're flying in a pressurized environment in the 29, but the flight characteristics as far as flying the B-17 versus the 29, and also, did you ever get to live your dream and at least fly once in a fighter?
I did. I did fly once in a fighter. I had a buddy that came over with a P-51 pilot. Now, when you're overseas, almost anything goes. So I sat down one day, and he come over. We got to talking. He said, "Come on." We went back to his base. He gave me all of about 15 minutes instructions on the P-51. He said, "Come on, now we have 2 wingtips, tanks, half full." He said, we're going to climb out over the Adriatic and we'll use the gas out of that, so there's a lot of fumes in the wingtip tanks. Okay, but now I'm a hot shot now. I'm a fighter pilot. So he said, okay, you couldn't get side to side on the runway. It was too narrow. He rolled down the runway, he goes off, and I roll on there. Oh, man, I'm telling you, if I'd had the silk scarf, I'd have thrown it around there. And probably went, I'm off the runway. The torque was so great, I did pull my airplane right off the runway, and I heard in my headset, So finally I got back on it, we went out, we got out over the Adriatic, and we threw formation on. He said, okay, now, he called me, he said, I'm going to slide out. When I give the word, pull the handle, release the tanks.
The object is to set both of them on fire before they hit the water. Oh, I thought, that's not too bad. So he said, now. So I pulled it, he pulled it. He had two of his before they were halfway down. I got one, now I'm looking for the other one. I don't have the slightest idea where it is. And while I'm looking for the other one, the plane is still going straight down. All of a sudden things start to vibrate. And I look at the ocean and it's coming this way. See? Scared the heck out of me. So I forgot about the tank and I pulled that up. Did I ever black out? As I come about right there, my eyes started to go up and the instrument panel got gray and everything. And I blacked out as I went up. So I did get a chance in the fighter. And as far as the best flying airplane between the 29 and the 17 was more forgiving. It would take a punishment to life you never saw. The B-29 wouldn't. Now the B-29 was something like the B-24. Bigger, faster, held more bombs, you know what I mean? But it was tricky. You didn't mess with the B-29. It was kind of tricky to fly that sucker right there and then get yourself in trouble. Yes, sir.
Who escorted you in Korea?
Nobody. We started bombing at night. I only had about, I'd say 11 or 12 daylight missions. And it was too risky. So we bombed at night. We had a new type of Saran or whatever. They flew enough. I flew with the pilot and the radar man right on. Well, to make a long story short, there was a bridge on the gorge right on the Korea side of Yama, and they were bringing a lot of supplies down. So I went up there, and my radar man was outstanding. And he got me, he could tell you he'd say 5 foot inside the arc, 3 foot inside, and I'd get on that arc. Once I was on it, I'd count that to myself. 1, 2, 3. Then I'd kick it 1 degree. 1, 2, 3, kick it 1 degree, and stay right on that arc. When we dropped our load, we went all at one time. The next day, they must have sent somebody up there. We have blown it clean out of the gorge. It was really a pretty good deal, so it's no use me flying today. Any others?
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
In 52, over in Korea, Busan, there were F-86 fighters with F-2 bombs on. Can you tell me anything about that?
Well,
How they went out, when I seen them, they take off about 25 at a time.
yeah, I never had any that were up with that took us, you know, no. I saw them, don't get me wrong, I saw some in the air, and I saw a couple do what they weren't supposed to do, and I was rooting them on. They chased those guys right back across the Gallo River. You know, they get tangled up with me, they chase them right back, and they weren't supposed to, but they didn't. I hope they shot the sucker down, too.
Okay, I guess that does it. Thank you very much. We don't have any dues or membership cards. Instead of passing the hat, we pass the steel box. That keeps us solvent.
So I'm probably going to go down. There's also a meeting at the same school.